Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your host, Marie. I've taken a little break. Yesterday or today, I was supposed to stream with Irene. I mean, not Irene, but Dina. And things didn't happen, go as planned, but it's neither one of us. Happy January. It's a cold one. I hope everybody's keeping warm. If you have a fireplace, stay by the fireplace. I could actually use a jacuzzi right now and do a nice Dead Sea salt bath. I wanted to stream tonight only because I want to explain my interest in these cases of the missing girls and where I stand with everything. As far as why I'm doing this broadcast. Let me start by telling you a little background about myself. My name is Marie, and I grew up in the foothills of Soapstone Mountain, which is located in Crystal Lake. Well, in the area of Crystal Lake, and I'm going to put up a picture of Crystal Lake so that you can see. The aerial view of Crystal Lake is, okay, let's take this stuff off. Okay, I'm just learning my ropes here, so please bear with me when I turn everything off and on. Alright, well, this is where I grew up, in Ellington, Connecticut, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area, Crystal Lake. You see what it's doing is, where it says left, that's north. So to the west of the lake is where I grew up, in the foothills of Soapstone Mountain. And it was a beautiful place. I grew up there in the 1970s and early 80s. I was there from 1973 to 1987, and then a little tiny bit of while in 1988. And back then I was being raised by my grandmother and was living with her. Her children basically grew up there as well. I mean, as with every family, there are certain things that go on, and so I'm not telling the whole story right here, but, for general purposes, all it needs to know is that, this lake area was made up of a lot of families, and when I say a lot of families, in the 1960s and 70s, late 60s, early 70s, the families were 9 children, 7 children, 6 children, 10 children, and each family could have that. So, whereas my grandmother had 7 children, there could have been another 9 children from another family, another 10 children. So, 19, that's almost 30 children in the same area from 3 families. All right, so I grew up in the foothills of Soapstone Mountain, and my family owned land up there. Now, the next picture is that I sent you the area view. My family owned this land, okay? In the yellow is where you see my family owned land. Now, for all intents and purposes of this video, it doesn't matter who built them or who decided to build on them. Just know that my family owned all these lots. And if you see the red X, that's where they searched the well a couple years ago for things pertaining to the cases that I've been talking about or wanting to talk about, that was facilitated by Tina Richburg's drive to report her aunt missing finally and report something else that went on, with an informant. And that well was searched, and they found 7 pairs of saddle shoes. Directly across from that is where my family owned land. All right. Now, as children, you basically play in the woods. those woods that you see there that surrounding all that land, we played in that. Mostly, for the most part, it was not built on. There's a lot of new houses up there, even in this picture. The houses to the top, that's underneath the word stone, those weren't there. So, you know, I just wanted to put this out there. Now, my cousin and I got talking, and all I wanted to do was get closure, because I had a time of it up there. As everybody has their things when they're growing up. As children, you play in the surrounding woods, and, you know, the houses are together, and, you know, you make friends, and the friends, everybody knows each other in certain areas. Now, when I grew up there in the 70s, my grandmother in 1989 ended up with 19 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. So, at any given time, there were 19 children playing up there. Well, it could have been, you know. But there's a lot more children that played in the woods. Between 1973 and 78, I was between the ages of 3 and 9. So toward the end, around, you know, if you want to go more towards 1978, I do remember certain things that went on up there. I remember certain things, certain details. You know, nothing that's going to crack a case like this. But it's enough information to give somebody to understand the dynamics of the lake. I had 5 family members that owned the property up there. Okay? To let you know. Now, another thing that'll happen is they search these wells, like they searched and found the saddle shoes, is you might have one well that you find a sword in. And on the surface, it's going to go, ooh, that must be pertaining to something. But you know what? It's actually nothing. If you do a little digging and you talk to the right people as opposed to the wrong people, the right people who were up there at the time of all this occurrence, you would know that my aunts and uncles found a sword in my grandmother's cedar chest, and they proceeded to bring it outside and play with it. And then when they got caught, they threw it down a well to hide it. So if there's a long sword, that could very well be the story. Nothing ooh about it. It's just children throw things down wells when they're caught with stuff. Now, we know the land like the back of our hand. As a matter of fact, the names list that, you know, I'll let you know that Tina does have. There's certain names on that, and I'm not very proud of some of the family members being on that list, or some of the things that happened at the lake, okay? But there are certain family members, including my mother and father, on that list. Just to put a heads up there. I can go into all sorts of twisted tales and stories about the taboo stuff that supposedly went on here. That's all hearsay, because that's what we're getting by now through people, is hearsay. There's a lot of twisted stuff that went on up at the lake. And you know what? It's no different than what went on in other places in the 70s and 60s. Okay? Families lived up there. There were things that went on that people didn't talk about, and police had to deal with it. And honestly, if you want to put this into perspective, the children that we normally have in nowadays in 2000 what? It's how many children per household is average? Like 2 or 3? These people had 7, 8, 9, 10 children, like I had stated. So it's not just trying to keep 2, 3 kids, all, you know, in line. It's a whole bunch of kids, okay? And there were kids that ran around, and there were kids that terrorized other kids, and that happens everywhere, and there's bullies everywhere today. And I bring that up because I read on a forum, I won't mention the name of the forum, Oh, well, you would think that these families would do this and this and that and this and that. Well, you know, lady, or whoever you are, based in reality, you don't know the family dynamics. You don't know what went on at the lake. You don't need to understand it. That stuff is irrelevant. The only ones that have to understand any of that stuff is the officer in charge of the investigation. Because honestly, the more I come out with, the more, you know, when I'm talking to Tina, the more it's going to muddy the investigation and split up names. So, I remembered a couple things. And the other thing is when my cousin told me about where I found out they even did the investigation, how I found out about it, I was a little freaked out because I didn't know about it. And this well was searched literally feet from where my home was. Feet. And these girls went missing. If these girls were there, they went missing right when I mean 73, 74, 75. My uncle broke his hip searching for Janice Pocket. I grew up listening to Grandma talk about Janice Pocket, the little pocket girl, missing Janice Pocket. To be honest, Deborah Spickler and Lisa White's name didn't come up, and I really didn't know about those two cases until I started living in Rockville, and that was like 20 years ago. All right. Now, do I feel bad? How can I feel bad? I didn't know. I was a kid. Now, the reason why I contacted Tina, and Tina is not the only one I contacted with this. I heard the broadcast, or whatever you want to call it, and I hadn't had closure on something that actually was personal and close to me that happened at this lake. Okay, let's see. Let's shut those. January, it's cold. Now, I turned around and I wanted to know, because as a little girl, 1973 all the way to 1987, but 78, let's say. I remember the dreams when I was 9 too. I mean, it's ever since I was little that I've been up at the lake. I've had dreams of being a little girl, chased down Pine Street. Somebody wanted to murder me and rape me. And honestly, I would never say that last part, the rape part, until recently, because I didn't know where it was coming from. From the ages of 3 to 9, I was totally sheltered up at that lake by my grandmother. So all I knew was the little pocket girl went missing, and that was in Tolland, and every time we passed the area to go to my aunt's, my grandmother would mention it. It was a very big deal to my grandmother and my family, actually. It was a very big deal. You know, the case got to everybody's heart in that area and beyond. So I'd have that dream. I'd have a lot of ghost dreams. I'd see this man. I saw him twice. One when I was waking up, and then the other time on the stone wall that Grandpa built. I wanted to know who that man was. He scared me. heart's going to scare me. When you're a kid, that stuff scares you. I would have dreams of dead relatives, spirits, dead relatives, and the next day, I would have a living relative that was in a dream the night before pass away as a kid. It happened a lot, and there were names that I would have never known that came out of my mouth when I was asking my grandmother. One was Valador, because I dreamt of Valador and Monok, who was Uncle Irvy Sampson, and the next day, Uncle Irvy passed away. Valador. Grandma's like, how do you know Valador? They're dead. Okay. So, here I am as a child having these dreams of dead people. And many, many dreams of dead little girls running up and down the road. Scary stuff. Can't bring that to a police officer and say, hey, listen, I did this, I did that, because you sound nuts. But what I could bring is what I knew. And what I can do is what I can. And that's tell the truth. And promise to the officer that's investigating the case from the state of Connecticut that I will do nothing and say nothing to compromise this case. Meaning, if something comes out and I know about it, I'm going to contact him before I contact anybody else. Now, I contacted Tina. I contacted another person that owns land there because I wanted to know who that man was. And my grandmother used to say it was a certain person, and it was directly related to the land that was owned up there. And I found out it wasn't that person. I did find a picture of that person, but it wasn't that person. See, Irene got back to me, and so did the other person that owned the land up there. They got back to me. And instead of thinking I was nuts, you know, of course, the landowner, you know, bid me farewell and wished me on my way, which was fine. Because she gave me the information that I needed to have closure with that. I did find the guy that I saw, and he was a dead man. You know. So where does that leave me with Irene? Well, when I was talking to her, she was asking about the way the land was situated up there. And not Irene, but Tina. In the case of the Irene LaRosa thing, is Tina and I'm talking, I told Tina all about my dreams. I mean, there were so many that I just told her the ones that really had an impact on me, and that was that dream that I was running down Pine Street and somebody was chasing me to murder me and rape me. Of course, I had other dreams where, you know, it's down and under in a foundation and stuff like that. Under my foundation where I grew up in the house. Which there's nothing there but cobwebs, and there was nothing there. Cobwebs, mice, you know, snakes. Ask my brother and my uncles, they would tell you what was under that house. But in my dream, there was more things under the house than what meet the eye. So I communicated to Tina, and Tina communicated with me, and I understand her. You cannot, you know, police is going to look at you like you have 3 heads if you're bringing things about dreams and stuff into it. What does that do for Tina? You know, where does that leave her when she's trying to actually find her missing person, her missing loved one? And so do people to help you out, to help you get this stuff out there. You trust people. with information that you normally wouldn't trust them with. And with me, I have nothing to gain or lose by any of this. I contacted 4 people to get answers for one thing and to talk to somebody about what I knew. 3 people contacted me back, meaning one of the people didn't care, have no interest. And guess what? He had no interest in a person that's an outside observer outside of the whole thing that could tell him exactly what was what on that land at the time of those girls being lost. I did speak with the officer in charge of the investigation. Promised him, he knows about these videos, I promised him I would not do or say anything that was compromising to the investigation. So, think of it what you will. I have actually another family member on that list of names that Tina has that there is dirt on. My father and mother dirt on them, you know. But the eye-opening one comes from another family member that has close ties to the person in question. And the people who had to talk to her spoke to her. Otherwise, she's not fitting the agenda that everybody wants to put out there. So, that's my thing. If there's any information that anybody has, I don't know why they wouldn't go to somebody who actually was around in that time in that area, that knew the area well. I mean, today it's overgrown and, you know, you can't walk in certain places. Or knew about the families and had family members that actually interacted with them from the outside instead of from the inside looking out, that have a vested interest in protecting people that they love through no fault of their own, mind you. A casual observer that has nothing to do with anything but to be an observer and to know that, have family members and know the area. But I guess the way you're supposed to web sleuth this case is to talk to everybody and their brother that has nothing to do with what the land was like back then. And come to the conclusions based on hearsay and based on what family members who do have vested interests in protecting their loved ones and themselves are. I have a lot of respect for Tina. She holds nothing back. You hold back things and you mess up the investigation. If you're not truthful with yourself to try to look at something objectively and see something the way it actually was, no matter how much it hurts you inside, no matter how much you don't want it to be true, then it's not doing anyone any good with the investigations. It's very difficult, believe me, I know. I have PTSD from my father trying to kill my mother in front of me. I know what it's like to remember bits and pieces, but not everything, because I was so little when it happened. I know what it's like to be thrown into flashbacks. I know what it's like to have family dynamics and family secrets. And I know what it's like not to want to face any of it, or having trouble facing it. The only thing I don't know firsthand is I know what happened to my mom. I don't know what it feels like never to have a family member to come home. My father came home with my mother, proverbial wise. Basically, the accident, my father was arrested and my mother was in the hospital, so I knew where everybody was. That's where it trips me up, and my heart goes out to you all. And that's where my heart is to these girls. The way I've had dreams all my life, the way this land cries back to you, they call out to you. Nobody knows what that's like, except for those people who lived there at the time all this stuff supposedly happened. There's something out there. What? I don't know. If those girls are out there, I don't know. I said what I can say. The rest of this is trying to let Tina talk without twisting things around and having everything muddied up. She feels like she's not being heard. She gets this platform, she's heard. Maybe something will come of it, maybe something won't. However, I'm letting everybody know, if you know anything about this stuff or that land, don't call me. Don't call a third party. You call that number, 860-896-3237 directly. And you keep it between you and the officer so that this case is not compromised. If you think it's a little thing, that's fine. But don't compromise the case by calling a third party. That's not cool. And that's my personal opinion. I know that the Rockville Vernon Police Department has their number out there too. It's fine to call them. I would. But this is the number that the cold case investigator gave me to call. So this is the number I'm giving out to you all. 860-896-3237. That's my vested interest in this case. The reason why I'm doing these videos. And I had to say that. I lived up there. I'm firsthand witness to living up there. My family has firsthand accounts of living up there. No matter how small of a detail it is, they still have it. By the way, don't bother going to my family because they already talked to my family members. The people who need to talk to them already talked to them. And that stuff is private between them, and even I don't know everything that was said. You all have a great night and sparkling tomorrow. I'm going to try to be doing something with Tina tomorrow because we missed today. Unfortunately, I had coronavirus hit 2 weeks ago. I've had coronavirus. My daughter's had coronavirus. Tina wasn't feeling good today. So we're going to shoot for tomorrow. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Have a good night and an even better tomorrow.